This presentation is going to give you an overview of how lobotomies have changed throughout history. Recently, I visited Glore Psychiatric Museum in St. Joseph, Missouri, and learned a lot about lobotomies and how they were performed. A lobotomy is a neurosurgical operation that involves severing connections in the brain's prefrontal lobe. The theory behind this is that it will lead to the uncoupling of the brain's emotional centers and the seat of intellect. Lobotomies were first performed on humans in the 1880s, and by 1935, Portuguese neurologist Antonio Moniz was credited with inventing the lobotomy. Moniz reported the treatment as a success for patients with conditions such as depression, schizophrenia, panic disorder, and mania. But the operations had severe side effects, including increased temperature, vomiting, bladder and bowel incontinence, and eye problems, as well as lethargy and abnormal sensations of hunger. The medical community was initially critical of the procedure, but nevertheless, physicians started using it in countries around the world. The first procedures involved cutting a hole in the skull and injecting ethanol into the brain to destroy the fibers that connected the frontal lobe to other parts of the brain. In 1936, psychiatrist Walter Freeman and another neurosurgeon performed the first U.S. prefrontal lobotomy on a Kansas housewife. He wanted to find a more efficient way to perform the procedure without drilling into a person's head like Moniz did. So he created the 10-minute transorbital lobotomy, known as the ice pick lobotomy, which was first performed at his Washington, D.C. office on January 17, 1946. Most famously, Freeman lobotomized President John F. Kennedy's sister, Rosemary, who was incapacitated by the operation, which was performed on her when she was 23 years old. The practice started subsiding in the mid-1950s as scientists developed antipsychotic and antidepressant medications that were much more effective. In 1967, Freeman performed his last lobotomy before being banned from operating. Nowadays, mental illness is primarily treated with drugs. In cases where drugs are not effective, people may be treated with electroconvulsive therapy, a procedure that involves passing electrical currents through the brain to trigger a brief seizure, according to the Mayo Clinic.